Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there is a ton of news stories to get into today. So let's start off talking about Bianca Belair and Sasha Banks from SummerSlam this coming Saturday. Now, of course, previously, there was a bit of concern that we wouldn't see the SmackDown Women's Championship match happening on Saturday at Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas. Bianca Belair and Sasha Banks missed some live events last weekend, and there was concern that due to unforeseen circumstances, we didn't know what those circumstances were, but due to some unforeseen circumstances, we could possibly see a situation where Banks versus Belair 2, of course the rematch from WrestleMania 37 earlier this year, could be cancelled. Now, fortunately, that doesn't look like that's going to be the case because Sasha Banks versus SmackDown Women's Champion Bianca Belair is on for Saturday's SummerSlam pay-per-view event. As noted before, there was some initial concern that Banks versus Belair would end up getting pulled from the biggest event of the summer after the two missed two non-televised WWE Super Show live events over last weekend in North and South Carolina. Now, it was announced that they were off the shows due to, quote, as I mentioned, unforeseen circumstances, but no other details at that time were provided. But in an update, according to a report by PW Insider, Banks and Belair are now, quote, cleared for in-ring action, and barring, quote, something unforeseen, that word unforeseen again, unforeseen circumstances, but barring, I guess the same, unforeseen circumstances, they will be performing at SummerSlam on Saturday. So I know some people were slightly concerned that a big match, because it's a big match, it's a featured match on the show. Look, there's obviously the Reigns versus Cena match. I guess you want to say the Goldberg versus Lashley match is a featured match, but arguably this was one of the matches, maybe after Cena and Reigns, I was probably looking forward to the most, if I'm going to be honest with you, because the match was so good earlier this year at WrestleMania. It main evented night one. Obviously had a ton of history behind that as well. The first time two black females had main evented WrestleMania. Also only the second time ever that you had females in the main event of WrestleMania. So it was a big historic match, and it delivered. It really, truly delivered. It's right up there as the match of that WrestleMania weekend. I think, if anything, the only match that actually tops it was the main event of night two, which was Reigns, Bryan, and Edge. But apart from that, it was excellent, and it was a moment. So I've been looking forward to that, like everyone, for a long time, and was very worried, definitely very worried, when I heard these reports about, well, it might not be on, there's unforeseen circumstances, and there was a lot of speculation, of course, that went around surrounding that match, and this match, rather, and the unforeseen circumstances, what they were. And like I said at the time, it's really frustrating. It's really frustrating as fans to say we'll have to wait and see. But in this circumstances, that's what you've got to do. You do have to wait and see. Look, this is a situation where I assumed, and I might be wrong, but I assumed that it was probably, when people are being not so transparent about issues, it probably has to do with health and medical records and all that kind of stuff. And once it's about that, it's not our right to pry. If they want to share that information, they can share it. If they don't, we just have to wait and see. And I know that upset a lot of people, but there's no need to be upset now because the match is happening. I think it's going to be one of the better matches on the SummerSlam card. Easily can steal the show, depends on how much time they get, but I think they'll get a lot of time. Previously, there was a bit of a hard and fast, you want to be done by this time when it came to SummerSlam on the Saturday because of the Pacquiao fight. I don't know if that's necessarily the case now. Pacquiao's got a new opponent, but at the end of the day, it still was Pacquiao in a live fight in Vegas. So there is the competition, and there is definitely the push within WWE of, well, we don't want to have this show last too long. So I don't know how long the show will last, but that is certainly something interesting. But it's good news, and look, it wouldn't have been a disaster for WWE. The show's going to go on, but SummerSlam without having Bianca Belair and Sasha Banks in a featured match is a weaker show. It obviously is. So that is certainly some good news. It's also been noted in that same report by PW Insider that Banks and Belair will be at the Footprint Center in Phoenix for Friday's SummerSlam Go Home edition of SmackDown on Fox. Carmella versus Belair has actually been advertised locally for the show, likely as a dark match, if it happens at all, because advertisements, this is the thing when it comes to this in WWE. I know some people get upset, like when Banks and Belair were pulled from the show, or when Charlotte Flair, I think, was advertised for a show in maybe North Carolina, and she wasn't there because she was in Mexico City for the Triple Mania show with Andrade and her father. And people got upset by that. I can't believe WWE falsely advertised. Well, that's what they do. They do have precedent for that. They are well known for doing that. So just because Belair versus Carmella is advertised for SmackDown, maybe as a dark match main event, It means nothing. It means absolutely nothing. Obviously, I think they'll be on the show. If they're there, you would at least hope they do at least some kind of talking segment or something, maybe a sit-down interview. I don't know what they would do, but the good news is, of course, that they're going to be there on SmackDown, but most importantly, they're going to be there for SummerSlam at the weekend, which is very encouraging too. Now, I do want to talk briefly, I mentioned Flair there, about Ric Flair, because Ric Flair reveals that he does not ride trains. Now, that headline itself may seem very bizarre, and you'd be like, what are you talking about? Why are you talking about Ric Flair riding trains or anything like that? Well, Ric Flair was trending yesterday, and you might have seen him pop up on your timeline, or you might have seen that Ric Flair was trending on Twitter, and you may have thought, why is Ric Flair trending? I'll take a look to see why Ric Flair is trending. Suddenly, if you clicked on that and you found out why Ric Flair is trending, you immediately regretted finding out why Ric Flair was trending. But Ric Flair has taken to Twitter shortly after this story and said he's not the man seen in a scandalous photo making the rounds on social media. Now, the Nature Boy, who's been in the headlines a lot over the course of the last few weeks, was trending worldwide on Twitter yesterday afternoon after somebody tweeted a photo that shows a man with a hairstyle similar to Ric Flair's performing, shall we say, on a train. Now, it should be noted that Flair himself cannot be identified from the photo, and many people are just assuming that it was Ric Flair based off the hairstyle of the man. Now, several Twitter users have noted that it looks like the photo was taken on the Long Island Railroad in New York. People were becoming amateur detectives, shall we say. But Ric Flair made light of the situation and posted a photo and a statement on social media. He said, quote, "This picture," the picture you can see right there, "is as real as that other one floating around. The Nature Boy doesn't ride trains. Woo woo." So there you go. I thought it was quite funny. I thought that was quite a funny response by Flair, and it absolutely is from Ric Flair, by the way. The reason why you know it's from Flair is because every single word is capitalized, which is a Ric Flair trait. I remember Conrad Thompson saying that a long time ago, that Ric Flair capitalizes every word, and when he was released by WWE a couple of weeks ago and he released that statement, it was 100% written by Ric Flair because every single word was capitalized. So that is certainly interesting. Look, whether or not it's Flair or not, I don't think it is, I'll be honest with you. I mean, from behind, obviously, you can see why people would think that. I don't think it's Ric Flair. But people are saying, look, the guy's in his 70s. He's just been released by WWE. He's doing all this stuff on trains. Got to be going to AEW, maybe. Oh, showing up in Mexico City. What is Ric Flair not doing right now? Certainly very humorous. Now, let's switch on to more serious topics, and it looks like John Cena may be Stone Cold Steve Austin's next guest on the Broken Skull Session Show on the WWE Network, or Peacock, because it appears that John Cena will be a guest on Steve Austin's Broken Skull Sessions podcast in the near future. Now, earlier this week, WWE Shop listed a new poster featuring Austin and Cena, calling it, quote, "Eras Collide," in the text, "Attitude Era meets Ruthless Aggression." However, the poster cannot be purchased yet. It takes users to a "looks like you've taken a wrong turn, you're in parts unknown" page with a photo of Papa Shango, which is pretty good. But it looks like WWE won't start selling the posters until making the official announcement of Cena appearing on Austin's podcast. Of course, Cena has never appeared on Austin's podcast before. Last Sunday, a new episode of the Broken Skull Sessions dropped on Peacock and the WWE Network featuring WWE Champion Bobby Lashley. So I wouldn't be surprised at all, to be honest with you, if maybe the announcement is made today. Maybe today, maybe tomorrow. Obviously, SummerSlam Saturday. I don't know if it will air after SummerSlam or maybe on the Sunday. There isn't a date, I don't think, on the poster yet. But look, Steve Austin talking to John Cena. Those Broken Skull Session podcasts are great. They really are good. I myself, I was going to say, did I prefer them to the live version? I liked the live version of the podcast. The reason I liked them is because they were so chaotic. Steve Austin just, every time he did a podcast, he got in trouble by WWE, which is what I personally enjoyed immensely. Whether that's the Big Show drinking, whether that's Paige getting in trouble for swearing, whether it's the horrific Dean Ambrose, Steve Austin podcast, whether it's the one he did with Triple H and all of those comments that came from that, or the Vince McMahon one, the first one, they were just all highly entertaining. But Steve Austin hasn't done one, I don't think, with Cena. I don't think Cena was on a Steve Austin one. I think Cena did one with Chris Jericho. For whatever reason, Austin couldn't do one that week or that time period. He might have been filming something or whatever. So they did one with Chris Jericho, and I think it was like Live with Chris Jericho, and that featured John Cena. So Steve Austin hasn't done one with John Cena before, and the good thing with these Broken Skull session shows is that they're pretty much a career retrospective. So there's a lot to get into there, certainly when it comes to Cena, and there's a lot to talk about. Cena doesn't do many pro wrestling interviews where he talks about his career, the behind the scenes, stories behind the scenes. It's weird, isn't it? Because there are so many guys nowadays with podcasts, shoot interviews, etc., that you know the story. But Cena, because he's this, it's like The Rock. When they're in Hollywood, they don't have time to be doing podcasts or be doing shoot interviews or telling the story behind. What were you thinking when you defeated the Nexus at SummerSlam in 2010? I'd love to hear a story about that from Cena's perspective. You don't really hear that often from those real, true, top megastars in the industry, certainly on WWE side of things. So I'm fascinated to see what he has to say. I'm sure they'll talk about, his starts and developments in OVW, WWE, but it's those big main event stories I want to know. I want to know more about the story behind Cena Rock at WrestleMania 28. I want to know, as I mentioned, Cena talking about the Nexus at SummerSlam 2010. I want to know about Cena, if they will talk about CM Punk. All that kind of stuff is what I'm really interested in. I want to talk about, or hear about rather, Cena transitioning away from the ring and what discussions he had with Vince McMahon about that. How he said to Vince, look, I'm going to go be an actor. That sort of stuff. I think that's fascinating. Whether or not they'll address all of that, I don't know. They've got a lot of time, and if there's ever an episode to go really, really long with, it's John Cena. So that's going to be fascinating to see, and I'll be watching it. Of course I'll be watching it, because I'm a junkie for that kind of stuff. Now, to switch gears and talk about NXT, of course, NXT TakeOver 36 is this coming Sunday on the WWE Network and Peacock. And Tuesday's live TakeOver 36 go-home edition of NXT drew 654,000 live viewers on the USA Network, according to Nielsen, via Show Buzz Daily. Now, this is down 12.91% from last week's NXT episode, so we're down nearly 13%. Of course, the last week's episode drew 751,000 live viewers on the USA Network. NXT drew a 0.15 rating in the key 18 to 49 demographic. This is down over 20% from last week's 0.19 rating in the key demo. And it just goes to show that the viewers of that brand, the viewers of that product, they're just old viewers. They're just old viewers. They're not in that key demo. And they're old viewers, which is strange that the show is so propped up by such an aging audience. But that's the case for Raw and SmackDown, whilst they'll still be number one on the network or cable most nights, and they obviously have a better key demo than NXT does. It still is an older audience for a show that is aiming itself primarily towards the sort of the younger fans, where they're trying to hit every demographic, and the only one they can actually draw is the older one on television, which I find certainly interesting. NXT ranked number 31 in the cable top 150 this week, as I mentioned, with that 0.15 rating in the key 1849 demographic. They also ranked 63rd in viewership on cable this week. Tuesday's NXT was tied with the July 6th episode for the second lowest NXT on the USA Network since it moves to Tuesday nights. This week's viewership was down 12.91% from last week, and I mentioned the key demo was down 20% from last week too. This week's NXT viewership was down 13% from the episode that aired 1 year ago, and the key demo rating was down 25% from the show that aired 1 year ago as well. Of course, that 2020 episode went head-to-head with AEW Dynamite in the Wednesday night time slot. So once again, that move to Tuesdays has kind of done nothing for NXT. They're losing viewers year on year, and the key demo is down. It's almost like by being on Wednesday nights with Dynamite, at least you had someone that was watching AEW and actually went, you know what, I'm maybe not enjoying this segment, I'll just check out NXT. And at least they had that younger audience, which AEW has, just at least maybe flipping over once in a while and maybe staying. They don't have that now. You have to go out of your way to watch NXT and decide you want to watch it. It's not just a little bit of a crossover from Dynamite anymore. And that's certainly interesting as well. I don't think that's what people thought would be the case when it comes to NXT. And people will say, well, that's not good going into TakeOver this weekend. Of course it's not, but NXT, it's a tough show to be invested in right now. Why can you be invested in a show when maybe your favorite talent isn't going to be there next week because they'll be fired? And we know the changes are coming, and maybe people have already started to check out a little bit of NXT. It's the NXT Game of Thrones behind-the-scenes power struggle is, to me, just bizarre. Absolutely bizarre right now. Speaking of NXT, though, one of the biggest stories right now is the future of Adam Cole. There's a lot of speculation surrounding Adam Cole's future in WWE and NXT. The NXT star wants to make sure fans know one thing, though, isn't changing in the upcoming future, and that's his Twitch stream. On that very stream yesterday, Cole stressed to fans that regardless of what happens in his future, he will continue on Twitch. He said, quote, "I love you all so much. I wish so bad that I could stream for a few more hours, but it makes me so happy that to even stream for a little bit, and when I say, no matter what, there is 0% chance that this channel is ever going away. I will never give this up. I love it with my whole entire heart, and I love you guys. That's how important you are to me, because you guys make me feel very important. There's been a lot going on lately, and I just want to make sure everyone knows this is going nowhere. This is going absolutely nowhere." Now, there's a lot to read into that one. Maybe Adam Cole, as part of a new WWE deal, has worked into his contract. He gets to keep his Twitch stream. Maybe that's a possibility as well. Another possibility, considering WWE's stance on talents using third-party platforms, not so much NXT talents, but certainly main roster talents, which is where WWE wants Adam Cole reportedly. They want him on Raw or SmackDown. Main roster talents can't have a Twitch stream unless it's a WWE-approved Twitch stream, and all the money goes to WWE and they get a little bit from it. So a lot of people are reading into this as one, it means he's leaving, because if he goes to AEW, he can do what he wants on Twitch. They don't care. 2, he's worked it into a new WWE contract, which is a possibility. Or 3, he's going to stay with NXT and he can carry on doing his Twitch stream and still be on the NXT roster. I find the latter almost unlikely now, considering the changes that are going on with NXT, right? If it's a developmental platform, Adam Cole shouldn't be there. He doesn't need to be developed. So I would rule that out. I would say it's the first two options are more likely, because I can see Adam Cole staying with WWE. I do think that is a possibility, and maybe he has worked out into his contract. He's got WWE over a barrel. Why couldn't he say, look, you know what? I'll stay, but I want my Twitch stuff. And if he gets that, then that opens the door for other talents to do that as well. Or it could be a case of he's going, I know I'm going to go to AEW, and I can do what I want on Twitch. Adam Cole's future is very interesting. We might be about to watch the last ever Adam Cole NXT match this coming weekend. Whether it's just because he's moving to Raw or SmackDown or moving to AEW, that remains to be seen. Of course, Goldberg is competing at SummerSlam this Saturday for the WWE Championship. Now, he recently did an interview on WWE's The Bump. He answered a ton of questions about his WWE career. We're not going to go into that. But he did mention that he has 2 more in-ring matches left on his WWE contract, which could mean anyone is next if he was to take home the gold on Saturday. He said, quote, "Hey, I've only got 2 more matches on my deal here, so let's see what happens." Now, of course, we know that Goldberg has 2 matches per year on the contract that he signed back in 2018, I think it was, when he had that terrible match with The Undertaker. Less said about that, the better. So he's got 2 matches per year, and obviously this is his second match per year, which has led to a lot of people saying he's definitely not winning on Saturday because he doesn't have any more contracted matches this year. That's a real possibility. His 2 matches would be next year, and next year is the final year of his contract. I still think that at the end of his contract, he's done. I just at his age at this point, WWE obviously sees value in him. That's why he's competing for the WWE Championship on Saturday. For better or for worse, they think there's value in Bill Goldberg. So that's a thing. But in a year's time, maybe he decides he doesn't want to do it anymore. Look, he's very happy with the money. I just don't know if WWE is going to be willing to pay that money next year. We know they're cutting costs and they don't want to pay as much anymore. Maybe Goldberg's different. I don't know. The only thing I will say, and this is the thing that does concern me, is we know WWE is going back to Saudi Arabia in October for the Crown Jewel pay-per-view. And look, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia loves a Goldberg match. Loves a Goldberg match. The last time he was there, he won the Universal Championship. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that they move one of Goldberg's 2 matches next year into this year and he does 3. So he would have done the Royal Rumble in January, he'd have done SummerSlam, and then he does Crown Jewel. I wouldn't rule it out, and it's terrible to think, but I wouldn't rule it out that Goldberg wins on Saturday and drops the championship in Crown Jewel. That's crazy, and I wouldn't like it, but I wouldn't rule it out. Because once you start getting into that conversation about Goldberg, Crown Jewel, Super Showdown, Saudi Arabia, whatever you want to call it, he's there for that payday. He is absolutely there for that payday. Finally, an announcement was made yesterday that WWE and The Ringer, which is a Spotify studio, will launch an exclusive audio network as part of a multi-year audio content partnership. As part of the deal, existing WWE audio programming will become exclusively available on Spotify. WWE and The Ringer will also collaborate to develop original audio content exclusively for the Spotify platform and Ringer website. So I don't know what this is going to be. I mean, the Masked Man show hosted by David Shoemaker and Kaz will rebrand to the Ringer Wrestling Show and will continue on that feed alongside new programming from WWE personalities. I know they've got podcasts already. WWE, of course, they've got the New Day one. They've got After the Bow. Didn't Alexa Bliss have a podcast for a while? I don't know. I know the New Day one is still good, but nevertheless, look. I guess it's just, this is what I mentioned before. It might have been, I was on the Distractions Patreon the other day, and that WWE, they just care about the money, and they make good money, and this is just the next step in it. I don't know if they've really properly hit that podcast genre like they would like and seen the success that they would like, and maybe this is the next step in that, but we'll have to wait and see. Either way, guys, as always, this is just one man's opinion. What are your thoughts on all of today's WWE news stories? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I'll do my best to respond and reply to all of your comments. Really enjoy interact with you guys talking about WWE, AEW, Impact Wrestling, New Japan Pro Wrestling, all things pro wrestling here on the channel. So be sure to get involved in the community. Drop a comment below. All opinions are welcome. If you have enjoyed this video, please do smash a like on the like button too. Really does help us out here on YouTube. Got the rankings and get into people's recommendation feeds if they haven't seen our videos previously. But most importantly, if you haven't already, please do subscribe to Wrestle News 365. You can do that by clicking the bottom right hand corner of the screen right now. Or if you wait a few seconds, there'll be a subscribe button at the end of this video along with another video for you to watch. Thank you very much for watching, listening, streaming, or have you come across this video today. And I'll speak to you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.